Welcome to Cut the Crap, the unapologetic, unfiltered podcast about the real life behind business, personal growth, and the beautiful chaos of it all. I'm your host, Kirsten, a creative founder, business mentor, and mum, navigating entrepreneurship in a way that's deeply human, never polished, and far from perfect. After 2 decades building businesses and working alongside some of the most inspiring people I know, I have learnt this. The real stories, the ones that don't make the highlight reels, are the ones that matter most. So this podcast is exactly that. Real conversations, raw moments, no hustle hype, no BS, just honest stories from people doing life and business on their own terms. Let's cut the crap. Welcome back to another episode of Cut the Crap. Today I have the wonderful Lauren Bath with me. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm so excited for this.
Me too.
It's been a long time coming. I think I told you about this podcast like years ago now. When we first reconnected, let's call it. So Lauren is a mother. She's an entrepreneur. She is a creator and she's a nurturer. And she has done some incredible things and had a massive journey back to self, I call it, of where she's come from. So our first connection was actually as children in school, right? Primary school, which you don't really remember.
Sorry. No, I don't remember.
But the funny thing is that when I was living in Main Beach, one day I was walking down the street and actually, no, that's not true. We were it was the Easter event in the street at Tedder Avenue, and I saw you with your kids and your husband, and I was like, I am sure that is a Lauren Bath from primary school.
And I think you knew me from Instagram as well, or you'd seen me on Instagram or something.
I think I'd seen you come up on Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we went to school together. And then we realized that we actually lived literally
next door, really.
Next door.
Around the corner, but effectively next door.
Yeah. And so that sort of re-sparked this, adult friendship. So having said that, what I saw on Instagram at that time was that you were Australia's first Instagrammer. And I was like, what? This huge profile and this incredible photos and, journey that you'd been on. So before we get into all of that, I want to find out about who Lauren was and where Lauren started from. So what was your childhood like?
Oh, geez, that's a whole podcast episode in itself. I think like a lot of women my age, I'm in my mid-40s now, I've been doing a lot of recollecting of my childhood and going through that healing journey and looking at parts of myself that developed from trauma and the hurtful parts of my childhood. So we could dive into that. I don't think it's anything too special of a story, just busy mum, single parent, being raised in a very fast-paced environment at a time where children were to be seen but not heard.
Yes.
So I kind of grew up with a lot of fight or flight energy, a lot of I don't want to use the word neglect because it's not really true, but kind of.
Do you feel like were you a outspoken child, or were you quite studious? Were you, was there any like early spark of this kind of, like do it for yourself mentality? Do you feel like that started then, or do you feel like that started later in life, that sort of little bit of entrepreneurial spirit? They say you've either always got it or, sometimes it's a learnt behavior over time.
I definitely always had it. And in fact, one of the stories that my mum always still likes to tell is that when I was young, I had all the children in the neighbourhood wrapped around my finger, all the older children. I was always organising something. I always had ideas.
Yeah.
But the really interesting thing about my childhood was that I had a really traumatic event when I was 4 years old. I drowned in the backyard swimming pool.
Oh, my goodness.
So I actually don't know what sort of personality I had before that because I was brain damaged. I had to relearn how to speak. I had like years of occupational therapy and speech therapy. So like a lot of the wounds that I ended up growing up with were around being stupid or being misunderstood. And having come through that, which, a lot of dynamics in my family changed at the time. My parents eventually separated from the fallout of that one catastrophic, childhood event.
Yeah.
But certainly as I came through that and regained my confidence, I guess I've just always been very tunnel visioned with what I want and kind of wholeheartedly followed my interests. And it does tend to be quite magnetic to those around you, which is why I did have all the neighborhood kids kind of following me. And I had a roller skating club, and one time in a school holidays, I had the idea to make pot puree out of literally stolen flowers from the neighborhood, and I would then sell the pot puree back to the very neighbors whose flowers I had stolen.
I love that.
And microwave flowers smell like shit, so stolen perfume in the mix, and I was making a fortune off that little gig. So
that's awesome.
So I don't know. Did the drowning like change my brain chemistry to make me that way? Was I always that way? I definitely have memories of being a shy kid, shy but shyly confident, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember you in primary school, and I remember you were quieter. Like I was a quite quiet child as well. I think I had a noisy group of friends, but I was probably that I feel like, but we just kind of got on with the job, so to speak. Yeah. And then so you went on to high school, and then where did you go from there?
I actually went to uni. For a spell. I wanted to be a chef. I had sort of fallen into that, and food's like a great love in my life. My father was a chef. Yeah. Just like right through both lines of the family, food has always been there. Yeah. So I was great at, home economics and hospitality and those subjects. So that's what I really wanted to pursue. But I was also like quite intelligent, book smart, let's say. Yes. So I was getting good grades, and my mum didn't want me to follow in my dad's footsteps. And so I was coerced into a university degree, which I did begin, and I chose nutrition as my field of study, which obviously makes sense. Yes. But I dropped out after 18 months. I just hated it. Yeah. I was so confused by university. Like I wasn't actually learning how to be a nutritionist. I was learning all these different subjects that, I don't know, like at some point I guess would come together and make something cohesive and teach me how to have this qualification. But I just thought it was a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. Yeah. I hated it. I didn't want to study. I've never been a very good studier. I've never really had the discipline and interest to sit down and learn from books. Yeah. So I found my second year in particular very challenging to maintain my grades. And so I ended up just dropping out and going full time into what was then my part-time job, which was in a kitchen. Yeah, and right. Yeah, they kind of trained me up, and I started cooking full time, and a few different things happened. I ended up moving to the Daintree. I don't want to go like too much into this, but my partner at the time, his parents bought a property in the Daintree. So we ended up moving up, and I became the head chef of that resort, and kind of moved from there to Cairns, and had like quite a good, successful, varied, passionate career as a chef for, I don't know, 15 years maybe. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but then you started, so Instagram started, what, 2011? 2009, I think it was. Yeah. Was the first year Instagram, yeah. So, as we all did, was sort of like, okay, this is different. Now we just take photos with our phone and, no captions and just filters. And so how did that start for you? What sort of led you into this massive kind of career blow up with Instagram? It's so interesting, right? Like I think when you look back on your life and you look at all the coincidences and synchronicities that led you somewhere. Yeah. I wasn't on Instagram when it first came out because I had this terrible phone. It was called a hip hop or a hip slop. I think I remember that. I remember the name. I can't even remember what they look like. But hip top. They slid out and they had a full keyboard. Oh, so yes. I actually walked into a phone store post breaking up with my ex and going overseas to find myself and all of that stuff. Yeah. Walked into a phone shop and said, I'd like to get an iPhone. And they talked me out of it and talked me into this, presumably higher commission phone for them. Yeah. And I hated it and was like literally counting down the days until my plan expired. I could get my iPhone, and that finally happened. I got my iPhone. and like absolutely fell in love with it. I got into Facebook and I was reading, lots of blog posts and
Yeah.
news and like just trying to find out what was happening on the internet. It was my first like real accessible experience on the internet in 2011.
Yeah.
And I read about Instagram. So I just downloaded it, having no idea it was even about images, and just, as you said, uploaded a picture from my camera roll and slapped a filter on it, which made it look amazing.
Yeah.
No caption.
Yeah.
and yeah, started from there. But I was pretty fortunate in that I stumbled across a community of creative people.
Yeah.
And they would have daily challenges, daily image challenges. And they had this kind of like a community guideline or rule where if you uploaded one picture for the day's challenge, you would have to, I think it was comment on 2 pictures and like 3 within the hashtag.
Yes.
So it was like a pay it forward sort of concept.
Yeah, I was actually listening to another creator who was probably a part of a similar thing on a podcast last week, who now works with Adobe. And you
It wasn't
probably
Paycatron, was it?
I can't remember her name. I'll have to have a look later and
probably
I'll let you know.
was.
But and it was the same. She was saying the same thing. I'm like, we need to go back to that. We need to go back to that vibe.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing I realized, obviously, was the more pictures you like, the more people will come back and like your picture.
100%.
Yeah, it's like reciprocity.
Yeah.
It's a law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
So then I would be like, well, hey, if I like more than 3, maybe I like 30. Maybe I like 300. And like literally I would just go and like just give love on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that traffic flowed back to me, and my images, I had a natural ability for photography. And so my images were not bad even back then with the old iPhone 4, I think it was, and my favorite filters.
Yeah.
And I just started getting quite popular and going on the popular page and trending. And I picked up my first camera about, I don't know, maybe 18 months after I started on Instagram. And I was one of the first SLR photographers on Instagram. It was still very much a mobile photography site.
Yeah.
So that sort of set me apart a little bit as well. And that's kind of when the opportunities started to slowly roll in as Instagram was gaining more and more attention for being a place of people's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so what happened from there? So you were still chefing at this stage?
Yeah,
or?
still chefing. It was actually interesting because chefing was like such a passionate career for me, and I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I think had Instagram have come across at any other time in my career, it wouldn't have grabbed me the way that it did. But when I moved back to the Gold Coast after living up north for almost a decade, I took a job at an old employee of mine from when I was a teenager. And it was just such easy work.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden I wasn't working in a high pressure kitchen where I had to come up with new recipes every other day, and I could just chill a bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't even the head chef of that kitchen.
Yeah.
I was, just working cold larder and pizzas. And so I had all this bandwidth and creative juices that weren't being met in the kitchen anymore.
Yeah.
And that kind of flowed into Instagram. So I had the time. It wasn't like I didn't work a lot of hours in that job. I had the time, I had the interest, I had all this surplus of creative energy. And so I poured a lot of that into Instagram. And when the opportunities came, and they were originally, we'll give you a free watch if you post it on Instagram. But then the travel stuff started to come.
Right.
And just like quite intelligent, like early adopters, like Visit Canberra was one. Hamilton Island was another one. They just had really savvy social media teams that were like, wait a minute, we're going to pay attention to this platform.
Yeah.
And started to invite influencers or Instagrammers, influential people on this platform out for trips.
Yeah.
And just the novelty of, I'm a wanderer, I'm a traveler, I'm a Sagittarius, like the novelty of having these opportunities. I was just like, holy, like you're going to pay for me to go to Hamilton Island, like, and just put stuff on Instagram, which I do anyway. Like, it was so amazing to me.
It's like winning the lotto.
Absolutely. But it was, it got to the point where I'd asked my boss already for time off work for a few different opportunities. And I wanted to go down to the Australian Tennis Open, which I'd been invited down to. And, I got the bit of the talking to from the boss, like, how often is this going to keep happening? And
and
I kind of really sat with that. And I knew that I couldn't turn my back on these opportunities. Like I wouldn't be able to say no. And I didn't know if there'd be more. I had no idea. And it was on New Year's Eve that I was at work and I was just thinking about like where my life could go and where it currently was. And after a few wines that night, I was like, fuck it. Like I have
Let's
to do
do
this.
it.
Yeah, like it's so cliche, right?
No,
Jump and
but-
the universe will catch you.
Yeah.
But I had that quote up on my wall, but I literally did. And not the next day because I was hungover. The next day, the 2nd of January, I sat down with my boss and I said, I said, I'm going to quit. Like, I'll give you as much notice as you need, but I really just have to see where this goes.
Yeah.
And after I had that conversation with him, I later went on my little break and I opened my phone, looked at my emails, and I had 3 opportunities sitting in my inbox.
Wow.
Like it was one of those moments where you're just like, okay, this is not a subtle sign from the universe.
Yeah.
I'm being punched in the face right now. Like
You better listen.
This is the path that I have to take.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't really look back from there. It was definitely scary and unknown to me, and it felt unsafe, and I wasn't sure about money and all of that stuff. Like it wasn't easy, but it was very obvious that it was what I was meant to be doing.
Yeah. And do you feel that, I don't know, like I sometimes feel this in myself, that we are more willing. I mean, obviously it's well ingrained in our DNA to be able to think big picture, to apply thinking and take these risks. But do you think that coming from our backgrounds of childhood, do you think that has anything to do with it for you, that why you were sort of, even though you knew it was risky and you didn't know if you would have money coming in, or you didn't know if there was security there, you would still take that jump? Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that you were raised in a,
chaotic environment?
Well, not even that, but just I think when you have a single parent, no matter whether they shield you from it or don't shield you from it, you know that like financially things are not always easy. And that's not for everyone's, that's not everyone's story. But if it's not, or you know that there's some scarcity, there's a tendency to have that scarcity mindset because, your parents were you're just sort of learning that by osmosis. But do you feel that can almost give you the strength to go, it's going to be okay? Because you kind of have to just trust in a process.
It's a very insightful question. Obviously I have the benefit of hindsight, and I think there's actually 2 pieces to this.
Yeah.
I'll start with the negative. The negative piece is like I've come to believe that we as humans, when we're unconscious or unaware of where we came from and our emotional patterns and our nervous system, we tend to unconsciously seek out the same feeling that we had in childhood.
Yes.
So because my childhood was a bit chaotic, a bit unsafe, I had that fight or flight energy growing up. I always unconsciously sought that through my careers. So first as a chef, which is, obviously a very stressful career. And then later as an entrepreneur, which is obviously a very stressful career.
Yeah.
And so there was something quite addictive in that hustle for me.
Yeah.
Which was unhealthy.
Yeah.
On the positive side, when you're looking at the power of creation, when you're looking at manifesting, when you're looking at being in flow with life, I do believe that when we just unapologetically follow our passions and interests, almost to the point of selfishness, the universe opens up to us in a way that's just very magical.
Yeah.
And I really believe that happened to me because all I wanted to do with my life was take pictures and go on Instagram. And I knew that. I wrote those words down when I quit my job, photography, travel, and Instagram. I wrote those 3 things on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I started to unapologetically and selfishly pursue those things, and doors opened as if by magic.
Yeah.
Like my career was miraculous. The exposure I had, the brands I worked with, the media attention that was on me, it was like coming from being in a very small career and being a very unknown person to being interviewed on 60 Minutes by Pete Stefanovic and running these events all over the country. Like it was absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah.
So whilst there was an element of a bit of a trauma or unconscious pull towards chaos, there was also the magic of pursuing something that I was just head over heels in love with.
Yeah.
And so I think those 2 things intermingled quite a bit, and I was able to untangle them over time, and certainly I have now. Yeah. And I am now on the journey of pursuing things that I unapologetically love, but doing it without stressing my nervous system or having my life be chaotic, doing it in a way that enables me to still have peace.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Which I've found
yes.
at last.
Yeah, but I do think that comes with age too. I think that, if we can teach our children to have that at a younger age, but I even see with my adult children how, it's almost unfortunately, it's almost like a rite of passage in a sense. You have to experience. There's so much that you want to not let them experience because you don't want them to have to go through that. Learn from me so you don't have to suffer that, and you can save 3 years here and 10 years here or whatever it might be. But ultimately, it's a part of the journey of growth of life, right? And,
I agree.
You have to learn those things yourself and feel them, because if you never feel them, how do you ever understand it?
Feeling is the word, hey? I often refer back to like old quotes or things that I've read about that have really interested me years ago. And I got it on an intellectual level, but I didn't feel it. And you can't rob people of that. Like you said, whether it's your children, your partner, I'm always telling my husband what he should be doing to get what he wants out of life, and
even staff, right? Even teams, when you're working with people, you want to, or even like in the mentor space, and when you're working with people, like I find when I'm working with other business founders and women in business, and it's like, trust me, you don't want to do that. Just do this, and then it's like, no, that's their journey.
Yeah.
You can only provide them with the tools to help them to see that when they feel that and they feel that moment coming, they can avoid that by doing this and moving away from that and into a safer space. However, it's their choice to make that, and then, but hopefully the lessons can be learnt quicker.
Yes.
Than,
we can save a little bit of pain.
Yeah. And move you through.
I mean, humans learn from experience.
Yeah.
It's how children grow up.
Well, it's like don't touch the oven, it's hot, right? You touch the oven, hot. That joke. We just told you that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that, but on a grander scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what were some of the biggest, achievements that you felt during that time that biggest milestones that you had when you were doing your Instagram superstar journey?
Well, I think that the interesting thing, and again, this probably comes from the trauma or the negative side of it, was that it didn't matter what I achieved. It was never enough.
Yeah, okay.
So I was always chasing the next thing. I never stopped to actually be like, holy shit, you were just on the Sunrise show. Like, this many people just watched you live on air. Like, holy crap. Like, actually, one of the coolest things that happened to me, I will tell this one because it's cool.
Okay.
I was being interviewed on, I think it was the Daily Edition. It was like an afternoon Channel 10 TV show.
Okay.
And I was in the makeup room, and I was sitting there, and I recognized a celebrity who was in the room at the same time. And God, his name has just slipped my mind for some reason. It'll probably come back to me.
Yeah,
but
in about half an hour we're talking about something else. I'll be like, who?
And I follow him, Daniel McPherson. So he's quite a big deal in Hollywood at the moment.
Yeah.
He's doing some really cool stuff. But he was sitting over there, and I was like, holy crap, is that Daniel McPherson, the actor over there? And he turns to me, and he's kind of like, he didn't say holy crap, but like the energy was, holy crap, are you Lauren Barth, the Instagrammer? And that's what he said to me.
Wow.
And he followed me on Instagram. I was being recognized in the makeup room of a television studio by an actual, celebrity. And
amazing.
that was super weird.
Yeah.
Had to boast that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, and again, going back to what I believe about humans, where we're always chasing the familiar and the same feeling we had in childhood, it just was never enough for me. It was always the next thing. I never felt any different. And my career pivoted quite a bit, especially during COVID. And we haven't even touched on a lot of the different ways I diversified from being that Instagrammer at the start.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, because then you started to sort of move into, let's call it corporate life a little bit more so, right? You sort of... This episode of Cut the Crap is brought to you by Bespoke Creative, strategic brand and marketing solutions for visionary businesses. If you're building a business but your brand still feels like a work in progress, or you're stuck in DIY mode and it's just not cutting through, they get it. That's what they do. Bespoke craft powerful brand strategies, compelling content, and high-impact marketing campaigns to help businesses grow scale, and stand out. Visit bespokecreative.com.au to learn more or book a free call. Solidified a business around what you were doing, right?
Yeah. Well, it was a bit, the first, I'd say 5 years or so, it was just a bit like say yes to everything and see what you love. And that worked out really well for me. And that's how I ended up getting into public speaking. It's how I ended up, I did an online photography course. I ran some photography tours in Zimbabwe. I started my own event, teaching people how to get paid to travel.
That's
I was doing
amazing.
commercial photography work. I was doing influencer work for big brands. I was an Olympus ambassador. I was interviewed all over the place. I was running workshops in Finland. I was doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah.
And, we did one event. This is actually in the very, very early days of COVID. And with our upsell, we made $600,000
Good
on
Lord.
that weekend. And all this crazy stuff was happening, but I was just not stopping to smell the roses.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of really cool stuff. And my husband even now says to me, you should tell people you were in Marie Claire magazine and you should talk about this more and you should talk about that award you won that time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. I actually did all of those things and achieved those things. But at the time I was just so in it. And it was just next. What else can I do? What else can I do? I was totally high strung, totally in fight or flight, still kind of loving my life, but also punishing myself with it in some ways.
Yeah.
It was
it's
it
hard.
was mixed bag.
Yeah, I feel you because I think when I had the agency, I know when I had the agency it was the same because it's been, I've had Bespoke Creative for 10 years. So even before that, it's been over 10 years since that agency has closed, for example. But even for me, it's the same. I feel like there's a lot of things that I have just almost trauma blocked. You kind of and then it's, you start to remember, and even putting together this podcast was sort of reflecting on my previous experience and, questioning, you question yourself of the authority that you have to sort of talk about these things and then it's hang on a second. Right. You almost do need someone else to remind you of everything that you have achieved and, and it's that definitely stopping because I feel like the early postpartum days actually really reminded me of that same feeling because, and not so much the very, very early, but that sort of the newborn phase is over and you're right into it. You've got the commitments of the things, the swimming, the needles, all of the things that have to be done. Or that, society puts the pressure on you that you need to be doing because you don't want your child to fall behind or you don't, but you also just want to give this little baby the best possible life that you can, right? And I feel that you almost get stuck in that, now you're planning for it's Easter and then it's a birthday and it's and that first year
Automatic.
of life is just
Autopilot.
Yeah, tick, 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 what's planning next? Planning next? And then when do you get to enjoy it? And it's but I think what flicked a switch for me to sort of go, hang on a second, was I've already had 2 children and that has gone so fast. I mean, we're talking 20 odd years gone and you just go, oh my God, I just remember those days, but they were so long ago. And I'm like, before I know it, I'm going to be in exactly the same position all over again here. And so you have to stop. And I thought to myself, it's exactly the same. And every now and then I'll be like, doesn't matter how busy you are, just stop and enjoy this. If you still like doing these things and you still want to stay busy, that's fine. Doing what you're doing, do your work, whatever. But you have to stop and slow down and enjoy these moments and do everything more mindfully.
Yep.
Because you forget.
Yeah.
You literally forget things.
Yep.
And it's not, and I feel like having a third child was a blessing because it sparked memories that I had forgotten about my older 2 children, which I may have never, ever remembered again. And it's not that I don't remember everything about, you think you remember everything, but it's just little things like, that time when they came into the bedroom in the morning and then, just little things like that.
Yeah.
But it's having this little, beautiful human that is now reminding me of all of those things because you're seeing it again. But I feel
nice.
but I feel like it's definitely the same kind of, feeling when you're kind of just rushing from one thing to the next all the time and you don't allow yourself time to stop? Because at that time you didn't have children, did you?
No, I didn't.
And had you met your husband by?
We were together, but our relationship was quite,
Yeah. Okay.
let's say, surface level.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we hadn't really gone deep with each other despite having clocked up quite a number of years together.
Right.
I think there's a lot of relationships like that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And so what changed? Because things changed rapidly and in a big way for you, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that journey. How did that happen?
I reached a point where I had started my personal development journey, and I was starting to, those very early days where it's all intellectual and you're learning about the ego, and I was learning a little bit about childhood stories and how our beliefs shape our reality, and starting to recognize when I was triggered in business and what that could have come from. And I was kind of just dabbling my toes in that world.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like really starting to appreciate what I'd built and be clear on what I believed my purpose on earth was, which was very linked to telling stories, traveling, showing up by example or leading by example, continuing to do work that felt really purposeful and passionate for me,
Yeah.
but taking it to a deeper level. And all of that kind of culminated in this trip I did to Zimbabwe, these tours that I ran, which just brought everything together that I loved, right? Like helping people,
Yeah.
animal conservation, travel, sustainable travel, the importance of telling stories, like all of these pieces came together. And I was like, it just felt like such a peak. And I appreciated it. I felt myself when I was in it, like I was finally starting to slow down and be like, yeah, this is where I'm heading. And then I got pregnant. So I literally got pregnant at the end of my second tour.
Because you really loved it.
Well, actually, it was super funny because I had such great people come with me. I did 2 tours of 6, and the second group, they knew I hadn't seen Emmanuel much over the last month, and they were like, you don't have to take us to the airport. Like we'll all chuck in and get a taxi together. You go and see Emmanuel. Dreamboat, as his nickname was. So I literally left the last 3 or 4 people from that second tour early. Surprised Emmanuel early in the morning, like went back to where he lives with his family, and he was still in bed asleep, and I kind of like opened the door and crept in, and I was like, I'm back. And 10 minutes later I'm pregnant.
It's how it happens.
And, we had 3 of his brothers had wives who had babies very recently. There were 3 2-month-old babies in the house.
Oh, wow.
So there was a lot going on. I'm holding babies all day. He's holding babies all day. And yeah, I got pregnant. And obviously I didn't know I was pregnant instantly.
No.
But, when I did find out I was pregnant, not long after that, a few weeks after that, I myself didn't realize how many stories or beliefs, how much was stored in my subconscious about the role of mother. Huge work, that I'm still working through.
Yeah.
Because I all of a sudden started to think about, well, how am I going to change my career? How am I going to make this work with a child? And already from a very, very early part of that pregnancy, I was thinking from my logic instead of from my heart and my gut, which is where so much of my success had come from, just following my gut, following my passion, following my interests. Like, yes, there was the trauma element, but there was a huge element that came from a place that was very pure.
Yeah.
And that stopped instantly.
Yeah.
And I started to think, how am I going to make money? How am I going to support us? My husband.
Your yang energy took over.
Oh, yeah, big time. In my household, that was what I knew. Like my mother was the masculine.
Yeah.
My father was out of the picture very early. And even when he was in the picture, he was quite unstable, I guess, with money. He was a gambler. There was just a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Not even at the surface at this point.
So you just knew that you had to be the one to take control and to bring the money in. It was on your shoulders.
Yes, absolutely. So I decided to take one of my business endeavors, I guess, streams, which was my event that I ran with 2 business partners. I decided to pursue that.
Right.
Because it was something I could do whilst being centered on the Gold Coast with a child. It made good money. and it had, there were lots of places I could take that. But we did have a restructure. We exited one of my business partners after an event in Queenstown, which I did quite heavily pregnant, or 6 months pregnant, I think I was at the time. And then my other business partner and I decided to push forward with the business. And yeah, like that's what all that I was thinking about, like how do we make this work? And we launched our next event, just the two of us. We put a lot of work into it. Everything felt a lot easier with just two instead of three business partners, just from the dynamics perspective.
Yeah.
And then I was coming up to my due date. I had my baby. We had launched and already sold quite a number of tickets. I was working the day I was in labor, but also the day I gave birth, I was at it because we had like social posts planned and, we had a Valentine's Day giveaway that we were running. I had to do a final call out for that. I had my baby on the 12th of February, Valentine's Day. So I was just literally still in it because I had this huge weight on my shoulders that I had to be the one to keep it all together.
I feel you.
And then of course, COVID-19.
Yeah.
1 month later.
1 month later.
1 month later. So I was fucking in it, man. Like I had a newborn. I had this business. I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. We're in a global pandemic. I'm running an event, an in-person event about travel. And it's like the only income stream I have left. So oh my God, like we luckily...
Okay, just run me through the thought process because that's heavy.
Well, I mean, is there any thought process when you're postpartum?
Oh, I know. Like I can't even imagine that. Like it's bad enough just trying to run a business postpartum, like let alone in the middle of, you're going into a lockdown that no one in the world has ever experienced anything like it before with a newborn baby.
Yes.
Oh my God. And you weren't living with your mum and dad and your stepfather?
No, I was.
You were?
Yeah,
okay.
we were there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's at least, one good thing, sort of.
But that's the funny thing about scarcity, right? And it's so cool that you mentioned that earlier because it doesn't matter how much money I've had in my career. I always felt like I had no money. Even when I had a lot of money, I always felt like I didn't have enough money.
Yeah.
Even when I had very low living costs and I was completely safe and taken care of, I always felt like I needed more.
Yeah.
So that was always at play, regardless of what my external circumstances were.
Yeah.
I always felt unsafe and unstable.
Yeah.
The good thing was I had my business partner. We had a coach who we were also doing a bit of contract work with, and we'd done a program with her, and she actually reached out and we're in crisis talks like, fuck, what do we do? Like all of our businesses are impacted. What is happening to the world? And between the three of us, we decided to launch something together and make it an online thing. And like, I don't know if I would have had the clarity of mind to have put that together.
Yeah.
But when it was suggested, I was on board.
Yeah.
And I operate very well under pressure after a lifetime of working in fight or flight. That's one of my skills.
Yes.
And we literally put this event together. We called it Base Camp. And it's all about, you can't travel at the moment. We don't know what the future holds, but every single human on the planet is on the internet right now. How do you capitalize on that? So we were teaching people how to build their audience.
Okay.
And it went exceptionally well. We had an entry-level event. We upsold people into a program. And it was like a really cool, like just a cool, easy little thing that spoke to all of our passion points. And it gave people a sense of community at a time where people like literally lost their physical community. We built this online community.
Yeah.
So definitely a case of right place, right time.
Yeah.
And because
and right people, because,
and right people.
Like you said, you just needed that, that clarity in that moment to go, that aha moment. Yeah.
And we were small and scrappy. We had contractors. We didn't have a big team or anyone relying on us. We had a bit of cash flow between us.
Yeah.
So we were able to just be like,
make it work.
Big organizations, I think, really struggled to, what do we do? Because there's so many moving parts. But we were just like, yep, let's do this. We had it launched within a couple of weeks. So
I
remember filming the sales video in my bedroom in my undies.
Yeah. No wonder you did well.
It was a really interesting time.
Yeah.
And we ended up taking that business, it was still sort of very much social media travel space. And when it became quite clear that travel was not going to bounce back overnight, and I remember answering a couple of people who had physical tickets to our next event, and they're like, is this event going ahead? And I'm like, it's just, COVID's just like a flu. Like, this will pass quickly. Don't you worry. We'll be in Melbourne by the end of the year. And of course, that didn't come to pass.
Yeah, and in Melbourne of all places too, right?
Yeah. So we ended up cancelling the in-person event, taking that digital as well. And then that's when we sold the program off the back of that flagship digital event.
Amazing.
That made the $600,000.
Yeah.
And then when we finally had this like amazing lineup now of programs, events, community, everything's like absolutely like it's not only fun and easy, but it's making money and our community loved it. We were like, nah, we've grown out of this. Let's chuck it in the bin. Let's start from scratch. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
We took this incredible thing that we had built, and although like a lot of the momentum happened throughout COVID, we had been running that business on the side for I think 4 years by that point.
Okay.
So we had like quite a good foundation of past clients and testimonials and success stories. Like we had a really, really solid foundation, and we literally threw it in the bin and started from scratch.
Oh my goodness.
And got into business coaching of all things. So we went from something that was quite like passion led to we're going to teach you how to scale your business and do good strategy, make a strategic plan and hire your staff and do an org chart.
That sounds like you.
I can only blame the hormones. Like, I actually don't know what I was thinking. I know, well, actually, I do know at the time I advocated quite hard I wanted to do personal development because, you know, at this point, I'm even deeper into my healing journey, my personal development journey. And I just wanted to teach that. Like, I wanted to bring that to the world. But my business partners were keen to do something more, what would you say? Tangible.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to promise a result when it comes to
It is.
spiritual journeys and healing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Because again, it's all about feel.
Absolutely. And if you're being pragmatic and building a business that you hope to be in for a long time, that you hope to scale, you have to have clear out. I mean, you know, it's marketing lingo. You need to have the clear takeaways and the ROI, and you need to convince people of why to invest their money with you and blah, 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 and what they're going to get from it. And so we did get into a business coaching with the promise between us that we would bring like a large amount of personal development and personal work into that structure.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know a lot of people do this in the coaching world. It's like you promise people the thing that they think they want, which might be, you know, I want to be better at marketing, or I want to learn sales, or I want more leads, or I need to scale. But actually what most people need is the personal growth that goes alongside the thing.
Absolutely.
You can't be good at marketing unless you learn, you know, how to reconcile yourself in your past. You can't be good at sales until you learn the value and worthiness within yourself.
That's right.
It all comes back to self.
It does.
Everything comes back to self.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's actually one of the things that I was speaking to the women in my retreat last week about, was that, you know, we talk about, you know, this, you're here for your business, but I don't believe that there's business and personal are separate. It's one thing, because anything that's affecting your business is affecting you personally. And if you're not working on this, you can't work on this. And one of the biggest things we were talking about was time management, and just, you know, allocating time, but being clear about that and, you know, blocking that out and what that looks like. But that has to go for both. You can't just do it for one and not for the other side of you. You can't just do it for business and not do it for personal. It has to be for both. And it all needs to come together. And that is a part of, you know, that personal growth and discovery, clarity, you know, and that confidence within yourself to be able to kind of, you know, make those decisions and choices and set those boundaries.
Yeah.
But if you're not feeling clear here, it's not going to reflect over there either.
No, and you won't attract it either.
Yeah.
Well, for better or worse, we built a very masculine construct, a very masculine business. We had a very clear strategic plan, clear goals. We had the team in place. We had the org chart. We had the company values and mission and, you know, all of those pieces in place. And it did do exceptionally well.
Yeah.
It made $1 million in its first 12 months of operation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's insane.
Yeah,
And
so good.
And the people that we attracted into that the main program that we ran, but also the other little external offerings to that. They were amazing, and they were getting really good results from working with us. Like, it was a cool business.
Yeah.
We scaled quite quickly. We had quite a big team. We were all in, and we were like, this is our forever business.
Yeah.
You know, we had it structured. We all had family trusts made. We had a lawyer, you know, we had individual lawyers. We had a business lawyer. Like, we put all the money that we'd made in to like really grow this amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it felt like the right thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my all into it. I was appointed the managing director of that business purely based on skills, me having the skills to push us forward in that role.
Yeah.
We all pretty much took on a role that we didn't like. You know, we're all very creative, entrepreneurial people all of a sudden building out a company.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all just said, like, soon we'll have people fill those roles.
Yeah.
But for now, we don't have the resources, we don't have the money. So let's just get in there, get it done. And so I was a managing director, and I was running meetings with the operations team about logistics, about systems. Like, I was helping to systemize elements of our entire like back end of the business, and I was very good at it, but I hated it. I hated it. I was dying. Like, my spark, my spirit, my life force, my fire, like the thing that has made me so successful and magnetic for so many years, and everything I've turned my hand to was just literally dying before my eyes.
And how old was your daughter then?
She was young. She was like, you know, well, this is throughout her childhood. So this is from age 1 month old right until she was 2.5.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a good mother, and certainly I had a lot of love for my child, but I did not have good attunement. You know, I didn't know what she wanted or needed. I didn't recognize her as an autonomous soul.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate her needs. I wasn't able to meet her needs. I wasn't the full-time parent. My husband was.
Yeah.
I was just in the business. And so when I got to the end of the day and I closed my last meeting on systems, I would have this time with my daughter, and I would use it to watch TV and order Uber Eats because there was just nothing left in me.
Yeah.
And we would lay in bed at the end of the day, and I'd be on Instagram and she'd be watching YouTube on an iPad, 18 months old.
Oh, Lauren.
I don't want to say I feel ashamed, because I know I was doing the best that I could.
Yeah.
And I also know that the money I earned during that time has been the money that's tided us over for the last 3 years. It's enabled me to turn myself around and be a much better parent. And yet it was not a vibe.
No.
It's not values aligned for me. I didn't feel an integrity at the time. I felt very lost, very, very lost. And it was actually falling pregnant with my second that was the catalyst for me to wake up.
Okay.
And it really was a waking up and a feeling of, for whatever reason, I'm off track.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Rather than, okay, first time it was, how do I get the money in and how do I keep it coming in? Now it's like, right, how do I get this family together and how am I going to be happy enough to be the best mother I can be for my kids and my husband?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So then where did you go from there? What happened?
Conversations were had. And that was a really tough time. My two business partners and I had a number of different conversations. We had to let our whole team go. We had to have exit agreements in place. Unfortunately, lawyers got involved and things went pear-shaped, as they often do when the emotions are high and there's so much, I don't know, like love and passion involved. But ultimately we did make the choice to just close the company entirely and all walk away and do our own thing.
Yeah.
I almost started something up with one of my business partners, but every time we kind of got into the talks of, let's take it somewhere, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me that.
But the feeling, you know, I've ignored my intuition many times in my career, but this time, I don't know if it was the pregnancy, and in fact, I believe it was. Like, I believe that having this other soul on board, I couldn't lie to myself, even if I wanted to.
No.
It was like really, really crazy. And now having met my son, William, like, he's a very special little soul.
Yeah,
there was
he is.
something magic happening between us.
Yeah.
Something very inner that I would never understand, but I couldn't I just couldn't. I physically couldn't make decisions that weren't aligned anymore.
Yeah.
And so that really stopped me in my tracks, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it was a time of a lot of stress over money. That scarcity really kicked in, like really, really kicked in. It caused a lot of friction between my husband and I. And I really recognized how I had attracted a partner like my own father, who I didn't feel safe with financially. And God bless him, you know, he's a wonderful man. I know that you know Emmanuel quite well. He's come from poverty and he's got a lot of work to do around money, and he's doing it, and he's now providing for me.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
we've come a long, long, long way.
Yeah.
But at the time, neither of us had the capacity to get what we needed and to have the growth that we needed.
Yeah.
And that was just something that had to unfold over time. So there was just a huge amount of stress. And at the time I should say we, although the money predominantly came from my business endeavors, we had $100,000 saved, plus, you know, excess money here, there and everywhere, and a little share portfolio, and lots of, we actually had like quite a lot of financial freedom, but it didn't feel like it.
No.
It felt very, very uncertain and very scary. And again, like back to that childhood chaos of feeling unsafe.
And having, I think, you know, the impending birth of a child always puts that massive spotlight on that and, you know, creates any time, I think for any family that's, even if you've got this, even if you, I don't think you even have to have a bit of scarcity there to feel it, you know, when there's a child coming, because, and I think that has a lot to do with society. Oh, well, you know, you need lots of money, you know, you need lots of money for all of the things.
Yep.
And, you know, it's that constant pressure that you feel from everywhere that you need to be able to provide and do all of those things. It's hard. And, I mean, you want to. You genuinely, that inner feeling of that's what you want. You want to be able to provide the absolute best that you can in whatever way that looks like, and that may not be financially, but like in every way possible. And so for you, that was a choice that you were like, okay, I'm not going to be able to provide for my family the way that I want to provide if I stay doing what I'm doing in this business, and it's time to go. Yeah. And you went.
I did. I did.
And so you really, I mean, so I think we must have met, well, how old was William when we kind of, you know, re-met?
Oh.
I don't think I was pregnant yet with Parker.
No,
so,
you weren't pregnant yet.
So that must be like 2021, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, William was born in 22. Maybe I.
Oh, well, he might have been a baby
when I was pregnant, or maybe I had a newborn.
Yeah, he
Not
might have been a
sure.
newborn. Maybe he was a newborn, or you know, but it was around that time anyway.
Yeah.
So then I really watched your big journey, and then I was going through my kind of journey, but then you know, but you really have gone through a massive transformation in the last, well, what? 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah,
More
I would
like-
say 3. When was it? We walked away in around February, March 22.
Yeah.
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 And we're in 25. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just over 3 years. It's
Yeah.
been.
And it's been, and what I feel like my vision of you is this person that's just shaken off this entire other body and just kind of like you've just stepped out of the ocean and just shaken it off, and then you're just walking up this like bright light of a human. And it's just like, yep, this is who I am. If you don't like it, that's fine.
It's been a very interesting few years.
Yeah. So tell me, like, share what, you know, I know you were already on an intellectual developmental journey, but, you know, after you had William, and then, you know, you started to really feel like, you know, things needed to change for you. Did you feel like you needed to find more direction for yourself, or how did it sort of come about?
Towards the end of my pregnancy, I had a number of very spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
One was a very unusual and deep communication with William when he was still in utero, at an event that I attended, a personal development event, where one of the women almost like channeled him, and he had a message for all of the women in the room. this is after we had just heard a talk from a very, very inspirational woman called Lynn Twist.
Yeah.
And she was talking about the idea of sufficiency, community, giving back to the world. And all of the women in the room were so moved by her because that's actually not how the world works. Like the world is all about what's in it for me, how much money can I make? You know, it's a very masculine world that we live in. And she had a very different message. And then all of the women gathered, and one of the women started to speak in almost in tongues, like in a different language. And she said, your baby has a message for everyone, for all of the women in the room. And
oh my gosh.
It was wild. And the message was dream bigger.
Wow.
Dream bigger. So for all that I had made this big decision to walk away from the business, and I was following my feeling of not pursuing anything new, and still I didn't have good attunement with the fetus or with myself as a pregnant person. I was still pushing beyond my comfort levels. And I got really sick towards the end of my pregnancy.
Okay.
I reached out to a woman I'd met at that same event, a different woman who's an energy clearer, and I asked her to do a clearing. And she went through and did that clearing and communicated with William in utero. And he had a lot to say because he'd been ignored for much of my pregnancy. So he was creating a level of discomfort for me physically so that I couldn't ignore him anymore. And I could feel it. Like that baby was taking up a lot of space inside my body.
Yeah.
And after the clearing, I went into this full-on parasympathetic state. I slept on the couch for half an hour and integrated everything. I woke up with this sickness gone. And I'd been to the doctor. I'd been on steroids. I'd been sick for weeks. I woke up completely well and completely attuned. And I spent the next 2 weeks of my pregnancy absolutely worshipping myself, waking up with pristine nutrition, pristine habits and supplements and sunlight, and just really, really nurturing and caring for myself. And when he came a week over his due date. I knew, I just knew. And I said to my husband, I think I'll go into labor tonight. And I just felt like eating carbs, and I made myself a lot of spaghetti with it, a lot. I didn't even make it for the rest of my family. I just sat there and ate this huge bowl of spaghetti. And I was like, it's coming.
This is for me.
Yeah, I had this level of just bodily knowledge that I'd never really had before. And the next morning I woke up in labor, sure enough, and ended up having William at home.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So this happened quite by accident. I had a fair bit of birth trauma with my first, and we ended up with a lot of intervention. I was quite scared of the hospital and the coercion that women have in hospital. I knew I wanted a natural birth, but I was really afraid that I wouldn't achieve that if I went back to hospital.
And you had a beautiful birth story with William.
Absolutely amazing. I was with Midwifery Group Care, which is a hospital-based midwifery practice.
Yeah.
But my midwife came and took one look at me, and I was literally, I was leaning over the kitchen bench naked, breathing intensely and doing a whole other story. I did another clearing with this energy clearer with Jenny whilst I was in labour. She was working on me and working on William and bringing us together. And that was a whole spiritual, I can't even tell you. When we were in sync, and she was messaging my husband I was way too deep in labour to be paying attention to this.
Yeah.
But when she said they're synced up now, I felt it. And that's when I started to push, literally. And
I've got goosebumps.
Oh, it was, the whole thing was just so bizarre. So I gave birth on my lounge room floor. Pip took one look at me. She said, I don't think you're going to get to the hospital, at least not in a way that's safe and comfortable for you.
No. And then the last thing you would have wanted is another story where you end up in a situation where you're having a baby in the back of an ambulance or, and that would have you would have hated that.
Yeah. So she gave me the choice to stay home, and I chose that.
Yeah.
And it was just the most empowering moment of my life.
Yeah.
And it really stirred up a huge interest in me about all of the different ways that women have been taught to suppress their own power. And this begins when we're very early. This begins with our programming, what society has to tell us about how little girls are and how we should behave. And And it continues right through our rites of passage, including menstruation, our first menses, and then, of course, childbirth. Like, most women are having interventions, not trusting in the power of their body to do what it is actually designed to do. And, I know that you've had cesareans, and I know there's a lot of circumstances where Western medicine is a lifesaver. But there's also a lot of instances where we have the power to do it ourselves, and that power is taken from us.
Yeah, and I think my opinion is that it becomes very fear-based.
Absolutely.
We're very fearful of what could happen. This could happen to you. This might go wrong.
Absolutely.
And it causes people to make decisions that maybe they might not have needed to have made because of that.
Yeah. And I think because I was quite deep in my intuition, given the clearings that I'd had and like this very spiritual experience I'd had leading up to the birth, the clearings, the walking away from the business, like I'd kind of landed in this place of deep inner knowing, and I felt perfectly safe.
Yeah.
When I thought of hospital, I felt fear and constriction, and when I thought of home, I felt this is where I need to have this child.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't spend a lot of time, if any, able to access that deep level of intuition that I achieved at that point in my life, just perfectly in sync with the arrival of my son.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so from there, you really have, you've gotten right deep down into that intuition on a much deeper level with, you've worked through an awareness journal, which you did every day religiously for 12 months originally. That was the goal, but you still do that now, right? And you work on your breath work, and you've got some daily non-negotiables that you do no matter the weather, no matter what's going on. And, I think one of the most amazing things about that I feel is that we can often, as mothers, we can tend to feel guilty for putting ourselves first and for choosing to go and do something that, might take us away from our family when they need us. And it's that pressure of like, oh, I can't do this for me because, and like, I know I still do that sometimes. I try very hard not to, but, it's amazing that you have done what you've done and how you've been able to manage it, because I know it's not easy, and the struggle internally to sort of, get to that point where you can be like, no, because I'm a better parent if I do this. I know I'm a better parent when I do this. It's wild, like just to have watched this journey of what you've created. And I think it's empowering for other people to see too. But how did it start for you? How did you, like, I know obviously you were saying, this spiritual connection and these clearings and things were sort of like that catalyst to start things moving forward for you. But then after you had William, it was a little while before you sort of started really working on this breath work and, this process.
Yeah, it was a little while, and there's lots of little coincidences and synchronicities and little events that happened that put me on this journey.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is that I've come to understand that our human experience and what keeps us unconscious, what keeps us operating from autopilot, what keeps us operating from limitation is a handful of things. One is our thoughts. And we know this through teachings, ancient teachings. Our thoughts are a program. The thoughts that run through our head are mainly laid out in our formative years of childhood. This is the content that we think about, the way that we think, what our thoughts tell us to do or not do is actually not helpful. It's not real. It's not truth. And yet many people, myself included for vast chunks of the day, these thoughts dictate how we show up and live our life. There's also our nervous system. And our nervous system is an autonomous program that runs in our body. We inherit our nervous system partially through our mothers. Our nervous system is the first part of our body to grow when we're a fetus. And it puts us into states of fight or flight, over, stimulated states of fight or flight, or freeze, shutdown, disassociation, based on the perceived level of safety we have in our environment. And we live in a very unsafe, ever-changing world where we have exposure to too much content, too much news, too many atrocities, absolutely too much stimulation with everything we're expected to hold and carry. And so our nervous systems spend a lot of time dysregulated. And then we have our emotions. Emotions are energy. They are an energy field that exists around us. Scientists don't understand what emotions are. We know that they're physically felt. We know they vary somewhat from person to person. We know there's a chemical response happening in the body that creates this or manifests these physical symptoms. So anxiety might be an elevated heart rate or a constriction in the chest. Anger might feel explosive. We know there's hormones produced that can contribute to this experience. And yet we don't actually know where these emotions come from. And they're happening to all of us all the time. If we're taught as children that emotions are unsafe, if we're not taught how to feel our emotions, if we're not taught how to sit with the uncomfortable ones, we get ruled by our emotions. So we're being ruled by our emotions, we're being ruled by our nervous system, we're being ruled by our thoughts, and none of them are objective reality. The reality is we are souls. We are powerful beings. We don't know why we're here. We're not meant to understand. We're just meant to fucking live. So I've found ways to remind myself of that every day through deep regulation and coming back to self. I do that through a journaling practice or an awareness practice that you mentioned. And that practice came to me literally fully formed. I need to do this. And I wrote it out and I didn't think about it. It just came out of me. And I have used it now every day for nearly 2 years.
It's amazing.
And it's a check-in. It's a check-in. What am I feeling physically in my body? Where's my nervous system at? What emotions am I feeling? How are they like physically being felt in my body? Checks in with the cycles. Where am I at in my menstrual cycle? Where is the lunar cycle at? Where is the season at? Like all of these things are impacting our energy. Like the global energy is impacted by how much sun we get, by how much sun is reflected on the surface of the moon, by what our hormones are doing in our menstrual cycle. All of these things are impacting the way that we feel. And if we're not careful, we clutch onto them and we make it mean something. We make it mean something about us. We create shame. We create states of unease when actually we're meant to live in a state of just deep peace and knowing and purpose and alignment. But there's just all this mess and noise and all this shit that's external that's going on that traps us and takes us away from that. So with the practice, obviously, and then every day I spend a lot of time in nature. When you found me before this podcast, I was sitting down on the grass. And, this is not performative for me. I don't care who sees me. I need to sit on bare earth every day. Yesterday, I spent 2.5 hours at the beach. If I took my beach time and turned it into a business, I would be very wealthy right now because I spend sometimes up to 3 hours a day on the beach. And I spend that time doing breathwork practice, sometimes meditating, collecting shells. I'm training my body to feel safe again. I'm training myself to get out of the hustle mentality and come back to peace and abundance. And you see that in nature, and you find safety in nature and deep inside yourself underneath all of these layers of dysregulation and emotional turmoil and these thoughts that aren't real either. So the more I come back to myself, the clearer I am on who I am, how powerful I am, and what's important to me, and actually live a really beautiful life as a result of that work.
And how do you feel that that's changed your parenting style?
In every way. Like I have attunement with my children. I know when they're dysregulated. I know how to regulate. I know how to co-regulate them. I know how to help them move through emotions. I know how to be fun and spontaneous with them. I had quite a stressful afternoon yesterday. I had my 2 kids and my daughter's little best friend, and between the 3 of them, the dynamic is just wild. Like it was a very stimulating couple of hours. And so by the time we got home, I was so dysregulated myself that I put both kids on an iPad and I picked up my phone. not a behavior I do very regularly anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a very effective means of self-soothing. Like there's no denying it. That's why we always
That's
reach
why
for it, right?
everyone's doing it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we didn't have long, just enough for me to regain my equilibrium, maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
At which point it's time to we're late for evening routine. I want to get them to bed on time, and all this. The stories are now kicking in. Got to get to this, and this. Eat them and feed them and get them into the bath and get the teeth brushed and get into bed and get them to sleep by this time. And it's easy to get back into autopilot at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I went into the bath with the kids, and my son wanted to breastfeed. He's still breastfeeding. And I just looked down at his little body, which is not so little anymore. He's 2.5, and he was curled up against me. And rather than being like, right, kids, we've got to brush our teeth and we're running late and this and that, I just sat there and I stroked his little body and I felt his fuzzy little hair and I looked down and watched him just latched onto me. And I just really had this deep moment of presence and gratitude in the bath. And the more we can have these moments and stretch them out and narrow the gap between them, the more beautiful our life is.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think that's beautiful. And it's not so much, I mean, I've still got a lot of work to do on the breathing side of life. Definitely.
Breathwork is a game changer.
Look,
absolute game changer.
And, I know I will get there fully, but I do what I can when I can. But it's not, and I was even saying this again in the retreat, it needs to be intentional. It needs to be intentional. You can do what you can when you can, but if you're not stopping and making the time and being intentional with it, it's like eating food. They say don't eat your meals in front of the TV. Don't eat your meals watching your phone or reading a book or being distracted, because your brain is not connecting with your gut to understand with your taste buds to enjoy the food, savor the food, feel the food, knowing when your body is full. Yeah. If you're just eating for the sake of eating and, distracted, you're not actually enjoying it. And I really genuinely believe that's the same with breath work and anything like that too. You need to be intentional about what you're doing. And, I was talking to someone, the question I get asked a lot from people is, how do you do it the third time round with such a big break? Gosh, it must be so hard. And, and what's it like? And, one of the things, and this particular morning someone had asked me, and it could have been a very stressful morning getting ready, because it is like you got to get a lot done.
It's objectively stressful.
There is a lot of lives that you live before you get out the door with a toddler, especially with 2. Yeah. And, I had this moment where he's got a, big red car toy that he likes to go for a ride in. And I was like, all right, we've got to go downstairs. He just wanted to go for a ride in the big red car. I'm like, all right, we'll do a ride. So I push him around the upstairs, and usually that's Shane's job. He pushes him around. But I pushed him around upstairs, and then I was like, okay, we're really going to have to go one more time, and then we're going to have to go. And I pushed him back where the car goes, and he looked at me and he wanted to go again. And I knew, I could feel it. He didn't even have to say anything. I knew he wasn't getting out. And I thought, there's the younger mother, the 20 years ago, the mum would have had a meltdown. I would have grabbed him, picked him up, but he would have kicked and screamed, and it would have been a drama all the way to the car. He would have been wound up and upset. I would have been anxious and wound up, and my nervous system would have been but instead I was like, I've worked out that all they need is about 40 to 50 seconds longer. Yeah. And what in the grand scheme of things is that 40 to 50 seconds? It's less than a minute. It's really not going to affect how late you're going to be anyway. So give them the time and let them have the choice to move out on their own and do it that way to avoid the drama and the stress. But that's experience that's taught me that. And so I did, and I said, all right, well, let's just go one more time. And then I went one more time, and he said, okay, Mummy. And then he got out of the car and was happy for me to take him downstairs, and we got in the car and we drove off. And
so epic.
But not saying that that's every day, but I have learned that if I push, hurry, push, hurry, it's just the nervous system you can see them getting, and that's when they start to do more things to, because they're like, well, I'm pushing back because I'm dysregulated and I don't understand why this is happening and I'm not sure. And if you just take that moment to just be a little bit more present and just feel them in that moment, you can avoid a disaster.
And that's what
primarily.
you don't have the space to do when you haven't done this work.
No. And it's, and I think that's, it's amazing that you can have that. And I feel like I wish more people would just, as mums, because it's so hard. Like we're all pushing every day, right? It's not, and like, just because you're, I just want to raise this for everybody that's listening and watching, just because you're able to do this work every day and be able to kind of, make those gaps smaller. It's not perfect every day,
oh God,
is it?
No. Nope. But I forgive myself.
This episode is sponsored by The Conscious Trader, a curated lifestyle brand created for those of us who value slow living, simple luxury, and intentional choices. Their range of small batch, sustainably made, non-toxic essentials are designed for the home and body, crafted with care, beautiful enough to display, and gentle enough for the whole family. If you've been craving products that reflect your values without compromising on quality or beauty, explore the collection at theconscioustrader.com.au. Slow living, simple luxury. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's just, and having that awareness and, and that understanding, but such a huge, journey for you. So now what does that look like in regards to, your professional life now, and where will, or where is that taking you, or what is your decision about where you're going to be going?
Before I answer that, you used the word intentional before about living a life more intentionally. And it made me think about my journaling practice, because a huge part of the benefit of that practice that I didn't actually foresee when I put it together, but that I feel very, very deeply every day, it's a written practice. So there's a lot of science around the written word and neural pathways, like reiterating a new reality through handwriting. Every single day when I reflect on my previous day, I visit whether I did my self-care and what it felt like, whether I skipped my self-care and why, what my excuses or reasons were. There's a little section around my content consumption, what I've consumed, something around my previous day's intention and whether I managed to be intentional for the day, anything I might have done differently with my day, and any lessons, like an overall remarks on the day. So every single day when I journal, the first section I do is my reflection from the previous day, yesterday reflection, I call it. And it gives me space to explore what I did right and what I did wrong in very minute ways, because what I've come to understand over time, but also quite early in the practice, is that a lot of dysregulation comes from very simple things, like not enough sleep and not enough nutrition. So I would often say, something I would have done differently. I wouldn't have yelled at William when we left the gym because I was hungry.
Yes.
Pack a snack for the gym. So now I pack snacks for the gym.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have lost my cool here. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't, there's always something little. I wouldn't have given the kids iPad last night. And in fact, when I did my practice before on the grass, when you found me, I wouldn't have given the kids the iPad as soon as we came in from that session I had with the 3 kids.
Yeah.
What would I have done differently? So what I would have done differently yesterday is I would have made sure I'd eaten before I had the 3 kids. Because I hadn't eaten, I had to keep them upstairs for longer. And upstairs, because it's a small area, everybody's nervous system gets activated.
Yeah.
I wanted to get them out earlier because in the fresh air, there's just space for all that energy to go.
Yeah.
So if I had have eaten a bit earlier yesterday, planned my day a little bit for that, gotten them outside straight away before we all got dysregulated, then we wouldn't have had to require so much soothing by the time we came back in from the beach.
Yeah.
So there's small tweaks that you can do to your day that you don't really notice when you're in it. But with hindsight, and because I have that hindsight every day and I write it down with pen and paper, it enables me the next time I'm like, oh, I have Aurora this afternoon, how am I going to structure my day? I actually be like, oh, remember last week?
Yes.
We got so dysregulated. I hadn't eaten. We got out of the house late. By the time we got back, blah, 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 all this disaster happened. And I'll plan for it. So like my life is literally just a series of minor tweaks that create a new reality for me. And, I call it the idea that I'm not choosing suffering anymore, because to continue doing the same thing is to choose suffering. To know that I get hangry and snap at my children and then feel guilty and ashamed of myself. If I then do that the next day and next week after that, I'm choosing suffering.
Yeah.
So I know down to like really, really minute details what actually creates change in the way that I respond, in the way that I think, and in my action and my habits.
Yeah.
And so that's how I live my life now.
Yeah.
So,
that's so great.
It's been a very, very powerful practice for me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
As for, you asked what the plan is now for business. I spend a huge amount of time every day on self-care. I do 2 hours of training 5 days a week, mostly yoga. I am spending at least a couple of hours at the beach most days as well. And that's my breathwork practice, my journaling practice and all of that. So that's, 4 hours might be the minimum for me, plus the time I spend making sure I have good quality nutrition, sleeping 9 to 10 hours a night, going to bed with the kids. All of this stuff takes time. And there's not a lot of time, like objectively, if you look at clock time, not time as a construct, but like actual, how many hours do we have in the day?
Physical
there's not a
time
lot left.
Yeah.
And I want to spend time with my kids. I want to extend that bath time and stroke my little boy's body while he's breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And yet what I've come to realize is that when I'm in a state of peace, I can get work done in a way that is effortless. And when I try to force work and do it from a place of I have to or I should or I must, it is very difficult. It takes a lot of time. I feel very bad doing it. But when I wait until I have fire and energy and my masculine is lifted, which as a woman, that mainly happens for me around ovulation, leading up to ovulation and just afterwards when I'm at the peak of my physical energy and I have got that more masculine power inside my body, that's when I do shit. I do shit around the full moon. I do a lot more in summer. I hibernate in winter.
Yeah.
I have an email database that I love writing to. I haven't written them an email since, for the whole of winter.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of autumn, to be honest, because I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And I trust, because I have so much trust and peace in my body now, I trust that urge will come back.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come back, it's not meant to come back.
Yeah.
Like I just wholeheartedly pursue what feels good for me.
Yeah.
I do feel a huge desire to get back into some form of business. That desire has come from another recent clearing that I've done where I just gained so much clarity and energy. And I've decided not to have any more children.
Yes.
Which
I was
a
actually
huge
going
piece.
to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's a huge piece for me because, when you have children, you don't have to, but for me, I surrendered quite deeply into my feminine, especially with my second. Once I softened up on that masculine that we talked about when I was like, had the weight of the world on my shoulders, huge business, no attunement with my daughter, falling into bed watching YouTube at night.
Yeah.
Once I let all of that go, I just got deeply into my feminine.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't have to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. Like, I'm just going to let the universe take care of me. I'm going to let my husband step up.
Yeah.
And I fell too deeply into my feminine where it's chaos. It's
You
really,
need some
you need a
guiding.
plan.
Yeah.
There needs to be some type of structure to get work done.
Yeah.
If you wait for the work to flow and for the desire to be there, it does come in fits and starts, but there has to be something to hold you accountable.
Yeah,
and
I
there
agree.
has to be communication around the things that you're selling that feel safe for other people.
Yeah,
Because the
that's right.
feminine in itself just doesn't feel that safe.
Yeah.
So I sold my journals recently. I sold them, with a complete belief that this is a absolute game changer. Like it is the bridge for a lot of people because we live so much in our minds. This is a bridge between the mind and the body.
Yeah.
Like it genuinely is. So for people who struggle to have a breathwork practice or a meditation practice or do the yoga or anything that slows you down, this is the thing that will get you there.
Yeah.
Because you can't hide from yourself in there. And it allows you to get into your logical mind, which feels familiar and safe. So I believe in this thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote this funnel and I poured just so much passion into the words I put out there. I made this like really free flowing video, just me riffing on how cool it is. I've been talking about it for months to my audience. I've got a huge social media presence.
Yeah.
And when the time came to sell it, I sold 5 packages.
Crickets.
Which is like absolute crickets. Absolute
You're
crickets.
Like, but what?
Like I've literally, my last business made $1 million. Like what?
Yeah.
And, it's not that, I've got huge stuff around capitalism at the moment and, huge resistance to the idea of needing money to live. And, I feel a lot of anger and resentment that this really important role that we women do raising children is not financially rewarded. Like we have to choose between actually being a really good, present, aligned, attuned mother or trying to balance it all to bring money in so that we have more money to do things with our children in a society that demands it.
Exactly.
I've found a way to live on less. I've been mainly living on parenting payments or government support. And I've found a way to I actually still eat organic food. I still get to the gym. Like I said, 5 days a week, I have a really beautiful life on a lot less. And yet if I want to travel, if I want them to have private tuition, if I want the option to homeschool, if I want to have more freedom of choice, I need money.
Yes.
So there's still a lot of, stories and resistance playing out for me. So I want the next step is to bring a bit more of that masculine in, of which thank God I have that. Thank God I have it. I think anyone who demonizes the masculine or the feminine or tries to resist one or the other or be in one or the other or make them black and white,
yeah,
totally missing the point.
Exactly.
We all
I
have
agree.
both inside of us.
That's right.
And it's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bring that balance back.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
To find it.
So the really exciting thing that I've done is I've booked us all a trip to Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
My husband is Zimbabwean. My kids have never been back to meet their family.
Yeah.
I absolutely did that at a time where it felt completely insane because we don't have the money, that $100,000 of savings, everything's gone. This huge launch that I did for my awareness practice that sold 5 copies, I lost quite a lot of many thousands of dollars in delivering that, let alone I'm not being paid for my time. And yet I'm still really showing up for those women and they're loving the practice.
Yeah.
So that's bolstering me for the next round. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So I've booked this trip to Zimbabwe and the understanding that my husband and I have is that the last time I felt, and he felt, very clear on our place in the world, the last time I was in Zimbabwe was that culmination of everything that I've worked for.
Just don't fall
what
pregnant.
I'm here. No, I know. I'm not ovulating when I'm in Zim. I have already thought about that. Don't you worry. But
God.
The last time I felt really, really clear of who I was and purposeful, I was in Zim.
Yeah.
So we're coming full circle.
Yeah.
We're going back.
Yeah.
And we're going in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And the idea is that after that trip, we'll have a bit more clarity as to not just clarity, but also just a bit of momentum and spark behind who we are, what we want to build, who we want to be in the world. Emmanuel and I have this just amazingly coincidental shared vision for our life, which just happened by pure accident. But I believe we're soulmates and we came together for a reason
and,
all those years ago.
I do think that, as much as, like you were saying, all these different things and the social pressures and the rest of it, and you can live a simple and beautiful life, but travel really does. And you know this, right?
Absolutely.
Because you spent so many years traveling the world. It just ignites fires and shows you different opportunities and different ways of living and enriches your life, perspectives in so many different ways, which are, and to be able to give those things to your children is very, very special too. I hope it brings all the magic for you.
So, and then we come back, we make a plan.
Yeah.
And as much as I get PTSD when I think about business plans.
But you know what though? I'm not a big believer in business plans. I'm really not. And there might be people listening going, well, but I believe that I believe in big picture plans.
Yes.
And then I like to break those down and work backwards.
Yeah. And that's all I have in mind as well.
Yeah. But then I don't know, I'm working on something at the moment. Of course I am, but I'm working on something at the moment. It's still a part of my business, but it's something different. And I actually have written something out for the first time ever before I've done something. I've never done that before. ever. In
Wow.
20 years of business, I've never done it that way. When I started the agency, I didn't have a business plan.
Yeah. Well, a lot can
There
get
was
done.
you know,
lot can get done without a business plan.
yeah,
If it's
and
coming from the right place.
And maybe for you, it's about just, trusting the flow of the energy and kind of, and then going, all right, now we're here. But because you do this awareness journal too every day, it's, almost like this just massive plan, really, isn't it? Because you're just working on the
minor
minute
tweaks.
details every day. So I'm going to, I haven't really asked you any of my big questions today, but I'm going to ask you my closing questions for the day. So, and we really have already sort of touched on this, but what does success look like for you today? Not the polished version, but the real one.
It feels safe in my body.
Yeah.
It's something that I can feel deeply connected to and grateful for. And it doesn't require that I sacrifice on my values. So I would not ever neglect myself and my health in the way that I have in the past, my relationships and my family like I have in the past.
Yeah. I love that. So good. What does your daily non-negotiable look like? What keeps you grounded?
Awareness journal practice every day, time on the beach every day, and I'd say 90% of the time breath work. I miss the odd day. Yoga 5 days a week minimum. Yeah. And I mean, with the beach, there's a lot wrapped up in that, obviously, grounding, sunlight, fresh air. Yeah, that's very settling for my nervous system.
So what would you suggest to anyone that's listening who really wants to get into this, but it's just like, feels like this, the whole thought of it all is just so overwhelming? What is one thing that you would suggest that they try every day that wouldn't take a lot of time, but that they could do that could help them to sort of get on that journey?
Yeah, intentionally get into nature for a minimum, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Preferably with bare feet.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the beach. It can be a park. It can be a backyard. Laying your bare feet on the earth and not just, I've got to tick this off the list, but actually just being like intentional about it. And there's a huge difference. Intentionally, I'm going to just take 5 minutes to breathe and just breathe and enjoy the feeling of the sun on your skin. That's it. That's where I started. Although for me, it was the beach and it was a swim because I needed something to really shake me up postpartum.
Yeah.
I just needed something. I was just in such a point of stuckness that I just needed something to rattle my cage.
Yeah.
So for me, it was 5 minutes at the beach.
Yeah.
And it was 15 minutes when you account for the walk to the beach and the walk back because I live very close to the beach. And I would leave my kids with either their dad or my parents. We all lived together. And I would literally march to the beach, throw myself in the ocean, march myself back. And that's where I started. And, it was a wonderful foundation for me because I love the concept of habit stacking where you have just one little habit and then you add a little something else to it. And that's how everything ended up getting added on.
Yeah.
So I stacked on my breath work, which originally my breath work was a 4-minute practice every day. And now it's a 20-minute practice every day. From there, I started doing my journaling at the beach. And that used to be something I'd just fit in at any point at home in the day. And now I do it at the beach and I have 20, 25, sometimes 30 minutes to really sink my teeth into it, not just to tick off the list, yep, done that practice, but to really sink my teeth into it.
Yeah.
And anything else, like sometimes I take a picnic to the beach. Sometimes I extend my breath work into a meditation. Often I still swim. Often I go and do some shell collecting. And I said to my husband, he came down with me recently and he's like, well, when are we going to swim? And when are we going to, and I'm just like, babe, walking down the beach with no purpose whatsoever, without worrying about the time, without knowing when you'll be home, without knowing at what point exactly you'll be swimming or doing your breath work is the fucking point.
Yeah.
When was the last time you just walked along the beach, not thinking about what you've got to do after the beach, not without, all these tiny little plans running through your mind.
Yeah.
Just looking for shells.
Yeah. Love that.
It's actually, it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic because the signal that gives to the universe, to your body, to your nervous system, like nothing is more important right now than walking down this beach looking for a shell. It's healing.
Yeah. So good.
So it's all added. So yeah, I think the important thing is that people want the quick fix. They want to go from being where they are now to being the person that they know they can be, or this idea of who they think they should be. But actually, there's a much kinder way of getting there. And the kind way is through self-connection. And everybody's a little bit different too. Like some things resonate with people and some things don't. I personally think nature is a cure-all for all of humanity. I think breathwork is as well.
Yeah.
I think yoga is as well.
Yeah.
I think my journal is as well.
It all is.
And granite and sunlight are as well. I think these are the basics.
Yeah.
Right? But from there, anything else you do, anything you do with your nutrition, we're very different system to system. Anything you do with your movement, we're very different from body to body. There are huge variances between us, but there is stuff that we as humans, we have a physical body. This physical body needs to move, needs to eat, needs fresh air. It needs to be in nature and connected to nature. And there's something very powerful of watching the cycle, watching the seasons cycle around and feeling the difference on your skin.
Yeah.
Feeling the difference in your body between winter and summer.
Yeah.
Vastly different energies. You don't know that when you're tucked up inside in your little safe,
that's right.
zone.
Very true. Very true. So what's one thing you've stopped doing that made space for more of the life that you actually want?
Working.
That was easy.
Gave up my 7-figure business. Freed up lots of time.
Lots of time. Love that. That was made for you, that one.
Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
All right. So now I've got my cut the crap truth bomb. So what's one thing in business or life that you used to believe but now you call bullshit on?
That's got to be hard. Yeah, that it's got to be hard.
Yeah.
Like I think we still have this hustle mentality. Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to work 100 hours and I've been through it and I believe there's an easier way. I haven't cracked it quite yet.
No.
I thought, if I do this awareness journal launch and it's a huge success, I've cracked it.
Yeah.
So that was sort of playing out behind the scenes as well because I desperately want to prove to myself and to others through my stories that there's another way. And I believe there is energetically a way of attracting. Work is involved, but that work should never feel hard. There should never be resistance in your body telling you not to do something.
No. And I agree. Sorry, I cut you off there, but I wholeheartedly believe there is as well. And I think that I am still working hard, but I'm still having the space, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I haven't cracked it either. But even though I've had hard days, I do not feel like it's impossible. I don't feel like I'm pushing against something I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It feels easy in a sense, if that makes sense. The only thing is I feel tired in my body sometimes. Like I said to you today, I feel tired. And that is also a part of it because that's the physical body saying, rest. You need to rest. But I've been holding space for other people. So it's been a very busy time. So that's understandable. I felt like I needed a couple of big days of lots of resting, lots of big early nights, but I still had lots of commitments. So what I've found is that, obviously that the power of managing your time as well as you can, but making sure that you're not overloading your time and allowing yourself space. So even if that means that, if there's this commitment and this commitment and this commitment, there's also another commitment that day that's going to be for me. So then one of those commitments might need to move to another day, or it's a non-negotiable, then that day it doesn't happen. Yeah. So I can try to balance those things.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I obviously don't do is work on the weekends. But I allocate myself 1 hour of check-in on a Sunday afternoon or evening, when Parker's gone to bed. But it's hard because also, as you know, especially when you've got small children, you're exhausted and you need to go to bed early too.
Absolutely. I go to bed at 7:30.
Yeah. And it's, it's kind of like, making it all work. So I think I haven't cracked it either. Definitely not. In a very different way to you as well. But, watch this space. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We will get there.
We're curious
Yeah.
and we're open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that means a lot.
Yes. Well,
But you raised a really good point as well. And something that's important to me is having a lot of flexibility in my schedule because there are days that you don't have energy. And I cycle track now. I track my menstrual cycle and I track the lunar cycle. And there is a huge difference between a time of high energy and a time of low energy within those cycles.
yeah.
When I don't have the energy, often I will still do yoga because I know how to follow my intuition in yoga and take the easier. I don't have ego in yoga.
Not pushing yourself.
I don't push myself.
Yeah.
But I won't do the second workout. Maybe I'm doing a body balance that day or a spin class or something. I won't do that. Anything I've got planned, if I'm not feeling it, I will unapologetically cancel. Like, sorry to say, but if I got my period today and it was a new moon, I probably would have cancelled because I know that it's a betrayal to myself to still push through and do that thing.
Yeah.
So business for me also needs to be built on flexibility.
Yeah.
And even though I only sold 5 of my last package of the awareness journal with the 5 women I'm going through with, like, it actually is so healthy for my nervous system to only have 5 because I don't need to use like MailChimp or something to send very fancy looking emails. I just drop all 5 of their email addresses into, my Gmail account and I can change things. Like, I can be quick and scrappy like you can when you're small.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to be said for doing things in a way that feel very nourishing and flexible and kind and peaceful, especially for women, because we are so dictated by these swings. And like, from my experience of going deep into this, 14 days a month, I'm pretty sweet.
Yeah.
14 days a month, I've got a lot less limited capacity.
Yeah.
And for 5 to 7 of those, like, dramatically less, and the other 7 slightly less, 14 days, pretty smooth sailing. This is pretty consistent every month.
Yeah.
Like,
and then yet we still go, yep, I can do that. And then the next week comes around and you're in that phase in your cycle and you're like, I can't do all of this.
Absolutely. We
You
do
know,
it. We
and
do it to ourselves. And that's why, like, knowing where you're at in your cycle is
exactly.
so powerful.
Yeah. And reminding. And I feel, I feel like it makes me feel old, actually. I don't know if old's the word, but older. When I listen to women younger than us now talking, because they're so much more aware of it. It's actually great. I think it's fantastic. They're so open about it and they're so, like, aware of their cycles and aware of where they're going with these sort of things. And there is a part of me, the older, more conditioned part of my brain that's like, come on, girls, you've just got to get it together because, you've got to do what you've got to do. Like, this is not an excuse. Like, just get on with it, And it's hard. But sometimes I feel that you do have to, there is a point where you do need to just do a little bit, or push through a little bit, because sometimes it's healthy to do that. But it just depends on where you are, where your headspace is at, where your nervous system is at, how you're feeling, what's going on around you in your home, like, all of those things take into consideration. If you're pushing from a place of fear and of scarcity because you feel you have to, that's different from pushing because you know that this is a good thing that you feel ready to do, and it's going to be a little bit harder and the energy's a little bit on the lower side, but I'm going to give this a crack today because,
I think that's a beautiful reframe.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We do have obligations. This is a busy life that we're living, especially when you have children.
Yeah.
Like, I can't turn off my children when I bleed.
Exactly.
But I can certainly have their dad give them their bath.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
cook their dinner a couple of those nights when I'm feeling
and give
very
yourself
inward.
5 minutes. Yeah. Or 10.
Yeah. Yeah, there always has to be balance in all things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yay.
just do the best we can.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been awesome. Where can everybody find you?
Instagram. Still on Instagram. Not doing a huge amount over there. Still posting on my stories most days, something.
Yeah.
But if anything ramps up, that'll be the place to find me.
And what's your handle on Instagram?
Lauren EP Bath.
Okay, great. And we'll put that link in the show notes as well.
Cool.
But thank you so much for coming and joining me today, finally.
Yes, this was really good.
So excited. Great chat. And thanks for tuning in for another episode of Cut the Crap. I hope you enjoyed it, and please like, follow, and leave us a review so that more people like you can find us. See you at the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crap. If something in today's episode resonated with you, made you feel seen, or sparked a new thought, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Remember, real life is messy, business is personal, and growth isn't always glamorous, but it's always worth it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and join me each week as we keep cutting the crap. I'll see you in the next episode.